You're listening.
I just don't care.
No one is ever kidding Michael Cole.
Of course he can roll a grudge forever. This is wrestling.
Welcome back to This Is a Work. My name is David Hensley. I am the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am here tonight to introduce your host, Robert. We didn't decide on a name beforehand, Brafford.
Thank you, David. I am Robert, the red-bearded, distinguished gentleman, not dogs, Brafford. And this is my co-host, Chris, the Fashion Plate Barnes.
Honestly, the first one would be more appropriate for the pay-per-view. And second, oh my goodness, Dave is here in person.
I know. It's so good to see you again, man.
Thank you. I've had a busy 6 months.
Adjusting back to civilian life. How's that treating you?
I relish it. I didn't do shit last night, and it was glorious.
Nice.
Yep. So happy to be back, and happy to be in the studio again.
Yes. Well, Dave, I think you picked a pretty good one to come back on. I don't know if you actually watched the pay-per-view, but...
Unfortunately, no, I did not. I had to miss 2 weekends in a row of wrestling pay-per-views because I was in a Soldier's Play.
Which is a shame. We need to get him to watch the main event at least.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to that one when we do. But
I just want to say real quick, I was busy 2 weekends in a row in Free Reign Theater's production of A Soldier's Play, which has been nominated for 9 Metrolina Theater Association awards.
That's right. Those awards will be presented on October 15th at Le Meridian in Uptown Charlotte. So if you're in the area and involved in the local theater community, might not be a bad idea to buy a ticket.
And I don't usually do this a lot, but I'm going to pat myself on my own back here for a second. One of those nominations was for me for Best Sound Design.
Yes, indeed. You are an award-nominated producer here at Long Walk Productions.
So you need to start appreciating this more. All of you, I assume, that are listening.
That's right. Exactly. Anyway, I'm going to hand it over to you guys and stop selling out.
All right. Well, thank you, David. But hey, your show. Sell out as much as you like. So, the podcast this week will be covering AEW's All Out Pay-Per-View 2023, following up 1 week after the All In event that was covered by Gina, bless your heart, Brafford, and Shelby Death Ray Patterson.
It's a bad one to stop on.
I was going to say, did you forget your own wife's last name?
I'm telling.
She's the one who hasn't gotten it legally changed yet. I'm just following up on this.
And it's okay because she's definitely done the same thing on their podcast.
But yeah, so AEW, 1 week out from having the highest paid attendance record of any non-North Korean wrestling show in history.
Legit.
Decided, what the heck, let's go for another one and have their regularly scheduled All Out event in Chicago. That by itself would have been a pretty tall order, but some stuff happened in that week leading up to it, and
It was just 7 days. What could happen?
Yeah, in wrestling, come on, how much could possibly go wrong? Well, we're not going to try to have the whole episode taken up about this, but we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that Phil Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk, who was a hometown hero in Chicago, one of the highest profile acquisitions during the run of AEW, has been terminated from the company.
With cause.
With cause, indeed.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah. So it is in his honor that I am drinking my beverage this evening, which I also had while watching the show. It is a Gentleman Jack and mixed with Pepsi, and I drink it out of real glass to absent friends. Yeah, so CM Punk apparently torpedoed his professional wrestling career because he just had to put Luke Perry's son in a chokehold backstage in front of a whole mess of people, including AEW boss Tony Khan.
Who he then proceeded to yell at.
Lunge at is also a term I've seen used a lot. It's like that very specific phrase, lunging.
I feel like the truth is probably he stormed over at him.
Yeah, so it was one of those things that was reported while All In was happening. More details kind of came out. Obviously, there were multiple people who had both sides.
Oh, Lordy, there might be video.
But surprisingly quick action on this, as Saturday night before Collision, AEW announced that Punk was out of the company, all employment contracts terminated, and Tony Khan, just respect for this, not only released a video statement to be read before that night's broadcast of Collision, he went out to a live Chicago crowd that had bought tickets to see CM Punk and told them that he had made the decision to fire that guy. Their reaction was about what you'd expect, but you really can't imagine Vince doing that.
Also, surprisingly, they kind of came around.
They did, and that's
think-
something we can get into with this card. But yeah,
I mentioned to you on the ride over. I think they kind of came. Because there's a real genuineness to Tony Khan. I think that WWE does not have.
yeah. I think it helps that honestly you can tell just watching that video this is not something he wanted to do. That like it was clear that honestly the effort that he went to try to find a way to make everything work after the events of last year's All Out. That he really, really wanted CM Punk to be a part of his company going forward. But we still don't know all the details, but whatever they were, it was enough that apparently it was an independent review board and outside legal counsel both recommended that, yeah, Punk had to go. So he has been GTS'd off to that giant Pepsi factory in the sky until he shows up on his episode of Dark Side of the Ring 2 or 3 years from now. But yeah, so again, I don't want to make the whole episode just a sideshow about Punk, but I will be sad that this is how his story ends because I think he's a tremendously talented guy. I loved, his match with Darby, his feud with Eddie, his feud with MJF. He had great television while he was there, but there was just something about the atmosphere when that level of drama is just waiting to go off that made it hard to enjoy the show sometimes. And while I try not to judge any celebrity or any performer by the insanity of their fans, the coping from Punk fans on Twitter this weekend was something to behold.
It's sad. It's just there's something vehemently mean about the people supporting Punk.
The number of people who have to be wrong, like viciously, actively, consciously, willfully wrong in order for Punk to be right is pretty staggering. And it's like you're talking about a 44-year-old man who put a coworker in a chokehold and then apparently went at his boss in whatever sense, and you're trying to come up with an excuse for well, he didn't have any choice, he had to do that, and I'm like,
First day on the internet.
I'm like that 51st Dates with Drew Barrymore. Like every day I wake up and I just can't remember what Twitter was really like yesterday. But yeah, so not looking to make that the whole thing, but CM Punk is gone, and obviously a few things about this card had to be hastily rewritten, specifically Ricky Stark's match. But when we get to it, I think they came up with a pretty good fallback plan. So they start off the show, 3 matches on the pre-show. The first one is the over-budget Battle Royal. That is its actual name. It's a 20-man over-the-top rope Battle Royal. $50,000 will be awarded to a charity of the winner's choice. Yeah, it's a fun idea. It's always good to see a Battle Royal on a card. I was actually kind of surprised they didn't get one at All In just to have all of the names present for that one. But yes, you got some of your big names on here. You've got Hangman Adam Page, Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta, the best friends, Jake Taylor, and you got some figures we haven't seen so much of in a while on TV, like Tony Nese, Scorpio Sky.
I thought Tony Nese did a really good job with the opening promo he got to cut.
Yeah, why don't you tell us what he said when he came out?
Well, he basically tried to lead everybody in group exercises.
Yeah.
And everyone collectively went, no, beat him up and tossed him out first.
He got to do the cheap heat of just these fat lazy Chicagans, and while he was on the mat doing push-ups, 4 guys came in, just picked him up and threw him over the edge. But yeah, fun.
It's a good bit and easy work.
It really is. Hey, hope he got a little bit of that $50K thrown his way when it was all done. Yeah, so like all Battle Royals, it's a lot of chaos, a lot of fun spots. A few people get to show off. I think one of my favorite bits on this was Daniel Garcia after he got eliminated. We get a shot of him walking up the ramp, somehow doing a dejected version of that dance move he does.
That horrible dance.
Yeah, with his forearms up and his hips swiveling, and it's just like, how did he make that look sad? I don't know, but... Again,
it just makes me think of any internet meme of the R2-D2 a picture with sad beep boop in the caption.
Pretty much, yeah. Dances sadly.
Beatboxes, sadly. I've seen that one too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so Hangman kind of set some stuff out early on. He and Trent Beretta kind of form an alliance.
That was interesting to watch. I like seeing stuff like that happen.
Yeah, that they're both faces. And they're not like a team or anything, but they'll try to watch each other's back. Final four in this one end up being Trent Beretta, Toa Leona from the Gates of Agony, Brian Cage, and Hangman himself. Cage throws out Trent. Page hits a buckshot and throws Toa Leona out. He and Cage have a pretty cool little sequence on the apron at the end where Cage tries to get him up. I think it was for a pile driver or a tombstone.
Yeah.
And Page counters into a Deadeye, just dropping him on the apron and rolling him out. So, yep, Page is your winner. And again, for all the heat he had with Punk, Chicago seemed pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, it's nice seeing this kind of match where Hangman Page, having proven himself a main eventer, comes out and does something like this, and it doesn't feel like a demotion. It feels like he's out there helping really hype the crowd up.
Yeah,
which he did a good job of doing.
And there was a little bit of notice earlier in the week that he wasn't set for the card until I think just before because. Yeah, I mean, obviously he took a little bit of a step down after being their world champion for a little while, but I mean, every time he shows up on a main event or on a pay-per-view, people kind of remember this guy has real face of the company energy. I'll go ahead and skip ahead to this. They did announce later on in the show that the charity that will be receiving the money is the Chicago Public Education Fund.
Nice.
Which I don't know how much influence Hangman actually had over that, or whether it was just like Tony Khan telling him like, "Hey, you'll win. Here's where it's going." But he actually was a high school teacher before he got into wrestling. He taught journalism at some school in Virginia, and has kind of talked about when he realized his students had found videos of him working like indie shows on the weekends and just trying to like teach graphic design class after that. But yeah, so good battle royal. Again, not a lot to it, just nice energy, warm up the crowd. I gave it 3.
Very good.
Yeah. So next up on the pre-show, we have a 6-woman tag team match between Hikaru Shida, Sky Blue, and Willow Nightingale against Mercedes Martinez, Diamante, and Ring of Honor champion Athena, accompanied by Billy Starks. Also a fun match. I'm trying to remind myself that for all that we talk about AEW needing to do a better job by their women's roster, this is what that's going to look like sometimes. It's just having another match on there. More build-up would have been nice, but that's going to be kind of a consistent theme through a lot of this card.
Mm-hmm. I honestly, the one thing that sticks out to me is Diamante has one of the best names possible.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like that's a Bond villain name, and you need to work that for all you can.
Oh, she's awesome. Yeah, I remember I feel like her last real big story was, I think she and Ivelisse were finalists in that women's tag tournament they had like 2 years ago. Yeah, that was a while back, but yeah, no, these were 6 women I would like to see more of at the very least. I know Athena and Martinez have been doing a lot in Ring of Honor, and I think... well,
I know Sky Blue is out there because she is also a Chicagoan.
Yeah, so she came out wearing, blue gear with red stars, and I feel like certain people looked at that as a statement about Punk.
Well, they can think that and be dumb because it's the Chicago flag.
It's the city's flag, and she's the hometown.
And that Punk co-opted into his ring gear, too.
But yeah, no. I like Sky a lot. I like Willow. I think Sky needs a little more seasoning. The go home on this match was a little bit rough, but like Sheeta's just a rock of the women's division, and Willow Nightingale is just a delight. I just love seeing her. I also love that despite her thing being like, oh, she's the happy, smiley baby face, she's still presented as a physical force. There was a great spot where Sky tags in Willow, she comes out, and Athena looks at her and immediately tries to go back to her corner.
Oh, yeah, because they've been building the fact that, like, Willow's been giving Athena her just desserts.
Yeah, and Diamante and Mercedes both drop off the apron because they don't want to get tagged in for this either.
That's one thing I like about AEW. It's like they show off the fact that, Willow was NJPW Women's Strong Champion, and it's not a fluke.
Yeah. That it's like, all right, well, you've been a champion, so we're gonna like keep pushing you at this level now. Solid match again. It's a fairly quick match, about 8.5 minutes. Ends with Sky Blue again. She's the hometown face. She hits her finisher, which is kind of a modified Canadian destroyer called the Code Blue on Diamante. Okay, it's a cool looking move. The problem is it basically involves her rolling into position on their back and then them rotating 90 degrees for the actual execution. And sometimes that works well when the opponent is bigger than her and can kind of manage that turn more easily. Diamante's on the smaller side, so
Right.
it ended up being a little bit more of a roll over her. But again, hometown girl gets the pin, crowd goes crazy, and again, we're doing a nice job of kind of warming up the crowd. I gave it 2 3/4.
Yeah.
But good to see these ladies on the show, and hope to see more of them on Dynamite and Rampage and whatnot going forward. Let's see. But before we get to the next match, did you see the video after this for LFI?
Oh, I think I missed it. I think I forgot.
So they do. They've been doing kind of a series of vignettes. I think mostly on social media, where Preston Vance and Dralistico, who were affiliated with Roosh for a while, are getting like abducted and taken to like back halls where they're getting basically the crap beaten out of them until they like fight their way free. And Roosh has revealed this is his way of
I didn't see all of this, but I saw some of this.
Yeah, so it's like he takes them into his mansion. He's up on the second level, and he's explaining how he's done what he did to make them the faction they need to be to take over AEW.
Right.
And I would love to see that happen because I think Roosh has been just kind of quietly turning out great matches when they let him on TV. And honestly, if Andrade wants to get involved in that again, it seems like he's been doing pretty well on Rampage too, or on Collision too. So yeah, the Faction Ingobernable may be a bigger part going forward. Mainly, I just liked it because it threw back to Lucha Underground a lot, and just those sort of like soapy, like, hey, here's a pre-recorded.
Oh yeah. I from what I saw, it was all in Spanish and it had a very telenovela vibe to
Yeah,
it.
just like, hey, here's a fight scene we shot in like a leaky basement somewhere, of just people getting their heads thrown into brick walls. But yeah, I mean, just the heat that Preston Vance got when he tore his mask off and made that little 10-year-old kid cry. I'm like, you can't just leave that on the vine forever. All right, so let's see. Third and final match of the pre-show, moving through this one, is the 6-man tag match for the AEW World Trios Championship.
That's right.
Yep, it is the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn, Daddy Ass, against Jeff Jarrett, Satnam Singh, and Jay Lethal. But they are not coming out alone. The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn are joined by none other than Dennis Rodman.
Which Jarrett and company offset by having a Chicago Bulls entrance.
Yeah, and I think Sanjay Dutt had like an Isaiah Thomas jersey. No, or that might have been on Collision, but
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that was. I'm not loving everything to do with Jeff Jarrett because I feel like a lot of his segments tend to just sort of feel like throwbacks to like early '90s WCW.
Well, and TNA.
Yeah, he had a Texas Chainsaw Massacre match.
Well, now
against
that
Jeff
wasn't
Hardy.
his idea.
It wasn't.
But I saw the pics of him having won it.
Yeah, that still just remains something that I have a hard time wrapping my head around.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Acclaimed come out, they get a good pop. I have to imagine that before the show, Tony Khan took Max Caster aside and led him to a little corner of the arena and was like, "You see this guy? This is Steve. Steve is a Green Beret sniper with 25 confirmed kills. He will be in the rafters with a bead on your forehead. If you go one line off script from your rap, buddy, pat. Just something to think about."
I'm pretty sure he knew how important that was.
Yeah, it was a fairly tame entrance by the Acclaimed, but I think the saltiest it got was calling Dennis Rodman and Kim Jong-un friends, which I think both men would be pretty happy to own up to. So
They do, often.
yeah. But yeah, it's not really much to say in this match. I honestly don't remember very much of the wrestling.
I don't think you're meant to. I think it's just fun.
They at one point Billy Gunn calls Aubrey Edwards out to referee the match specifically.
I have my own ref.
Yeah, because she and Karen have feuded.
Yep.
Aubrey comes running out, and a nice touch. She normally, has a very tight bun or ponytail, and here her hair's loose because, crap, they just called her out. She wasn't done getting ready, and she just looks like that for the rest of the evening.
Well, that was how that was the initial setup for the later guitar spot.
Oh, the guitar spot. I'm never going to stop being amused.
How long did Aubrey have to pretend like she couldn't tell what was happening behind her?
Even by the standards of like the obliviousness of wrestling referees, her hearing a crash, turning around, seeing Dennis Rodman holding the broken remnants of a guitar while Jay Lethal lays on the ground surrounded by wood fragments, and just have to be like,
I'm going to put that on Rodman because Rodman was just he was milking it just so hard.
And Aubrey just had to be out there telling, I think she was like throwing Karen Jarrett to the back or something.
Well, no, they were fighting because she spotted Karen coming in with the guitar, and so she wrestled it from her and tossed her out.
And just had to be like, yeah, you keep going.
You
keep going.
Well, no, I don't think Karen had left. She was because Aubrey was between the ropes yelling at her.
Yeah.
And eventually she turned around and saw it and had to be like, what happened?
But yeah, this just felt like sort of an excuse to get the Acclaimed out there.
It was just a match full of hijinks, yeah.
Yeah, and a place to fit in Rodman and the other, and just, get a few more like good Chicago pops before the show proper starts. So I gave it 2.5. Yeah, it's not me hating it. It just was sort of like, it had a function. The function just was not really to be a wrestling match.
And that's fine. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. This is... Honestly, this is just a victory lap for the most part for All-In success.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I look over the list of the rest of the matches on this card, and I'm like, there is not a whole lot going forward that involves what you would comfortably call like more comic wrestling. So, it's like, you know what, crowd, get your laughs while you can, and then.
Oh, they made their own.
They did find their own places to put them, which we'll get to. All right, so the card proper kicks off. Opening match, AEW World Champion Maxwell Jacob Friedman is not defending his world title in this card.
Nope.
Instead, he and his tag team partner Adam Cole
and best friend,
suck it, Roderick Strong, the team of Better Than You, baby, are defending their titles.
His neck is hurt.
Oh, his neck is hurt, but not nearly as much as his heart.
No.
Defending against the Dark Order, Alex Reynolds and John Silver, accompanied by Evil Uno.
Which they pointed out, Alex Reynolds was one of the people who trained MJF.
And that was honestly a nice... also just... I don't know if it's a function of MJF being younger than I remember he is, or Alex Reynolds being older than I realize he is, or maybe just there aren't that many...
the spray tan adds a few years.
Yeah, there is that. But... yeah, it was just good to see the Dark Order back in a spot like this, because those guys are a really good tag team, and I feel like they...
and they've been doing a lot of work on ROH, apparently.
Well, because I think Stu Grayson wound up over there as well, so I feel like they've been working around that. But, yeah, it's nice to see the Dark Order getting to be proper heels again, because after...
they're working back into it, yeah.
After Brody Lee passed, there was just sort of this understanding, like, you guys are the most sympathetic figures in the company right now.
Yeah.
But after Hangman left and they got hurt about that, it's gotten a little darker. And I'll tell you what I really loved about this is I still have a hard time forming the words MJF is a babyface and having it feel real. But this was a great match to show him as doing his gimmick of I'm a scumbag, but I'm your scumbag to the fans, versus the Dark Order who are acting more like proper wrestling heels.
Yeah. Like the sportsmanship chant.
Oh my gosh, that was so great. So yeah, he and Alex Reynolds get out there, and MJF, instead of engaging, just goes sportsmanship to one side of the arena, and then to the other side, sportsmanship, and just gets everybody going. And so when he sticks his hand out, well, Alex Reynolds does not have any choice but to grudgingly shake his hand and immediately get his eyes raked by MJF. And he doesn't even follow up on that. He just does it just to be kind of a douche.
Yep.
And it's later on in the match, but also the spot where I think Silver gets knocked off the turnbuckle and Alex Reynolds gets thrown off, and he's wobbling, and they're about to do the spot where he's going to fall and land and hit Silver in the crotch. And he's wobbling and trying to stay on his feet while MJF watches, and he barely keeps it together. Then MJF just flips him off and pushes him over into it anyway. But yeah, you've got that, and then compared to that, you've got the Dark Order doing the more traditional, like actually like hitting people with chairs outside the ring.
Uno, taking his shots.
Oh, Evil Uno. There's we'll get to it a little bit later, but at one point he hands the tag belt to Reynolds and tries to have him hold it up so Silver can whip him into it. And it's just again, the way they've managed to keep MJF still recognizably the same character while also just letting him be that way in a way that the crowds can cheer for.
Oh yeah.
It's
And then then he gets a proper babyface moment as well, because in the match he gets, or he I forget what he does. He hurts his neck.
So he gets hit with a chair to the back on the outside from Reynolds, and then when he tries to set up the double clothesline, Silver hits him from behind. And when he gets up from that, he's like holding his neck.
He's shouting about his neck, and he's basically saying, "I don't know if I can keep going." And so help comes out, and Adam Cole ends up getting left alone against both of the Dark Order.
Yeah, and he's doing his best, but there's two of them. They're a really good tag team. They're wearing him down. And then the crowd starts chanting MJF.
Well, before that, don't they do a double clothesline on him?
Yeah, so they do hit Cole with a double clothesline, which he kicks out of.
They do. They even do it. They even do the setup, just like MJF and Adam Cole
the point
do.
And and I think the crowd starts chanting for Cole at one point. Single clothesline.
Yes, they do.
Single clothesline, which is just a hint of where this crowd is going to go as the night goes on. But yeah, so as Cole's finally getting worn down, he can't hold him off on his own any longer. Who should appear at the top of the ramp but Maxwell Jacob Friedman?
He's holding his neck, and he is just power walking his way back down there.
And medics are trying to stop him, tell him you can't go back down there, Max.
Shoves him off. He stomps up the steps, and he gets his hand out for the tag.
And Cole hits it, and the crowd goes crazy as MJF hot tags in. And the great part is that like he sells it as an adrenaline thing. Like he'll do like a sequence of moves and then take a breather and then hold his neck because he's still having to power
whenever
through
he's
pain.
not actively doing something, his hand is back to his neck.
Oh, I was going to say, before he comes back out, Evil Uno's spot is when after Cole takes a particularly bad hit, Uno goes to his corner and like reaches out his hand like, what, you want to tag me? You want to tag me? Which, that's good heel stuff.
Oh, it really is. And MJF has another great move where he grabs Silver and Reynolds, double eye poke, head bonk.
Yes. Pure Abbott and Costello stuff.
They rally, and then they get the double clothesline off. Yeah, he also gets the kangaroo kick.
He hits the kangaroo kick, which is not just a thing he did for Aussie Open. That's apparently just going to be part of his repertoire going forward. But yeah, they hit the double clothesline. Cole takes out Evil Uno with a super kick. And MJF pins Alex Reynolds to retain the Ring of Honor tag titles.
And that was it.
Yeah. Well, he's really badly hurt, obviously.
Yeah.
He collapses on the apron, and medical's checking him out because he really pushed through.
They're gonna head to the back.
Yeah. What I really liked is after months and months of the build for this, anytime Cole would touch the AEW title, he would have this moment where he thought about not giving it back or using it as a weapon.
Right.
And here, as MJF's getting helped up, Cole's holding both tag belts and the world title, and it's not even played at all. Like they're not trying to overdo they could turn it any second bit.
I'm sure it could build back up to that again, but they're in like they've hit like the post story little honeymoon where they're still like things are A-okay again.
Yeah. And so as they're going up the ramp together, MJF...
Samoa Joe has had enough waiting.
Yeah, because his music hits when they are halfway back up the ramp. He comes walking out straight down the middle. And if the world champion is even slightly in his way, well, Joe is just going to smirk and throw out a straight arm and shove MJF out of his way.
In an Easter egg to an incident that happened well before AEW existed.
I think it was like a NXT takeover way back when.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe's just walking down a hallway, and one of the yellow-shirted security guys is a very young MJF who was just there to get shoved into a wall by Joe, who had places to be.
He was walking He was matching up with Joe and walking with him instead of near him, and he gets shoved back.
And as MJF would later say on Twitter, I'm not that little kid you shoved in Brooklyn, because he goes charging down to the ring, neck injury be damned.
Yes, he does.
And tries to attack Joe in the ring.
Gets into and it's like, and Adam Cole hangs back because he doesn't want to get involved. But he's waving for people to come out. And it gets more frantic as Joe slaps on the Coquina clutch, which is a powerful neck submission.
Yes, not something you want to do if you've just twinged your neck in a match. I can't help thinking if also there might be some continuity to the fact that I think the last time they feuded in NXT, Joe choked out Cole pretty badly. I mean, he was doing his last run as kind of the enforcer for GM Legal.
That's right, yeah.
But yeah, so eventually security separates everybody, and MJF walks to the back, although this time he is holding his belts and reminding everyone that he is not going to be disrespected this time.
It's like, it's a very successful setup for future ideas.
And a part of me feels like this has to be at least a little bit because the one thing everybody agrees about from All In as to what happened backstage is that when that went down, Joe was there because he and Punk were about to go out for the first
And
match.
he broke it up.
And
yeah.
he handled business. Like,
Yeah.
he separated people. He apparently told Jack just to, like, get out of there right now. Like, I don't know if he, like, grabbed Punk and did, like, the airplane slaps to make him get a hold of himself. But basically, nobody was even sure the match could happen at all, let alone that it could happen in the next 3 minutes.
Essentially, yeah, Joe got Punk out,
Yeah.
said, basically, he was like, I'm going out for the match. You better be out there, too.
Yeah, so just seems like whether this was planned already, but I find it pretty believable that, yeah, this is kind of like you did very well. Why don't you take a run at the world title next? 'Cause,
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, he and MJF could have that. And honestly, that's a good, to keep up the thing of MJF still being kind of a heel but facing worse heels. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, they could do a lot there. So, yeah, before we move on, I'm just going to say that, Better Than You, Bebe versus the Dark Order, I gave it, you know what? I gave it 4.5. Just
Nice.
great story. I love seeing MJF embrace these classic babyface tropes so unironically because...
It's, you know what it is? It feels like people talk about it all the time. I think I've done it to some extent. Other people have done it. When people like see something so corny or dumb, and they're like, and they start incorporating it ironically, like words. Like, you think a phrase is stupid, so you start saying it just as a kind of like it's a joke, and then you realize at some point, oh no, I've just been saying it.
There's a great novel by a writer named Ben Croshaw about a post-apocalyptic world. And it's a dumb apocalypse. It's like a carnivorous jam spreads out over a city.
Yes.
But there's a group of survivors in a shopping mall, and they're like a death cult. But they're doing it like they're being ironic about it. Like they get it's like, we know obviously this is what people do in movies. We realize what it's like, and the protagonist points out, but you're actually killing people, and they're like, well, no, but it's ironic. But they're still dead. And yeah, MJF's kind of doing the reverse of that, going into being a babyface. And
Yeah, it's like he's like, all right, I'll be a good guy. I'll be all right. Oh no, I'm actually doing it. I'm getting into it.
friendship is making my heart grow 3 sizes. And the best
I
part
kept
is
quoting the Grinch during all that, going, I'm feeling.
And the best part is that, whenever they decide that they want to have him be a heel again,
Yeah.
if they do, then he just goes right back and is like, haha,
Oh, yeah.
you chumps
No,
bought all that.
100%.
Yeah, but they could honestly keep this going for a while. I don't think anybody expected him and Cole to have the legs that they have as a face act, but sometimes you just get that chemistry.
It's super good, yeah.
So the only downside to that match and the follow-up segment, which is great, is that I do feel like Joe and Shane Taylor's match feels like a little bit of an afterthought from there.
A little bit, but it was surprisingly good for two big guys going after each other.
It was really
brawling.
good. Yeah, and they're both the same kind of big, which is sort of
Yeah.
like they're not particularly cut, but they're strong. They're both capable of doing like quick bursts of like jumps or fast strikes.
It's the kind of big where it's like it's a working man big
yeah,
versus a power like a power lifter big.
yeah, and just there are a lot of scenes sequences that were just them sort of squaring up and trading like jabs and body shots, and both of them made those look really good.
Yeah, and it speaks, especially Samoa Joe, that like he's always been great in a situation where it's like, do you need a technical finesse? Do you need to just hit somebody?
Yeah.
And he looks great doing both.
He really does, and just honestly, he's 44 years old, and during his last run in WWE, people were kind of like, Joe, he had a good run, but you can tell he's slowing down. I don't know if he just found a second wind or has just really nicely modified his style, but he is just still
And
looking
Vince
good
has
as
a
ever.
habit of doing that with wrestlers too, trying to put them out to pasture before they're ready to go.
Yeah.
He tried doing it to Macho, he tried doing it to Piper, and then they left and they went, no, I still got stuff in me.
He may have done it to Adam Copeland. We'll see about that. But yeah, good match. There's a really nice segment that I liked where Joe gets a sleeper hold on Shane Taylor reaching over the ropes.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is Joe defending his Ring of Honor television championship. His title's on the line. But he's trying to lock the sleeper hold in over the ropes while he's on the apron. Taylor powers forward and basically like hauls Joe bodily over the top while still keeping the sleeper hold in, and then just drops into a stunner. Joe's head hits his shoulder and he just goes limp and rolls off him. It's a great sell.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I remember somebody showed me a video once of Bret Hart versus Stone Cold, and they talk about how The Rock had kind of the iconic sell of a Stone Cold Stunner where he hits it and he just pogo sticks off.
Right.
And somebody showed the clip of Bret Hart doing it, and he just looks like he's been knocked out. Like he just hits him and just slumps.
And it's believable, unlike, say, Vince, who just couldn't take it for shit.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Vince could never get the hang of
those
knees.
Those are two great sells in different ways. It's like you have the, I want you to see how explosive this move is, versus I want you to see how terribly this move can hurt somebody.
Yeah, and honestly, for a match that was really focused around, punches that look like they hurt and, kicks and just people looking like their bodies just getting worn down by a series of small, hard impacts, that was the good sell for it.
Well, yeah, it is, especially because it's like the Rock type sell is like good for a big pop. That kind of sell, when you see someone just go limp all of a sudden, it's like, oh God.
Is he getting back up? Yeah, so match ends with kind of an abrupt go home, but again, it fits in the sequence of the match.
Right, yeah.
Shane's trying to hit him with like some chops and some body shots, and then Joe suddenly just grabs him and hits him like with 4 or 5 knees just to the midsection and face, and just puts in the Coquina clutch and gets him back down.
And that's enough, yeah.
He has to tap. So quick match, 6 minutes, 25 seconds. I gave it 3 1/4.
Fair enough.
Yeah, just good match, went fast. Overshadowed, like I said, a little bit by the story beforehand and the fact that there's another big man match on the card later.
I think they kind of had an idea going into it. It's like, yeah, that's going to be explosive. That's going to be this one will reel it back in a bit.
Yeah. And they had a match coming up they knew also was going to get everybody fired up, because next we come to the AEW TNT Championship.
Oh, yes.
Defended by Luchasaurus, accompanied by the Father of the Year, Christian Cage.
The actual TNT champion, if you listen to him.
Oh, my gosh. His whole thing with that, like his promo against Darby Allin while he's holding the TNT title. Yeah. The difference between you and me, Darby, is that I would never pretend to be something I'm not.
Yep. Oh, man.
And that is his opponent.
He's so good at that.
The sheer commitment. When he went to the press event afterwards, his first question,
unabashed hypocrisy. Yeah.
How's everybody's dad doing?
He's really leaned into that meme.
It was like just the logical thing he could do with Jack Perry, and it became, even before he'd finished that feud, it became his defining thing.
It was part of the video package where they showed him as like, I understand you. It was like it was Darby Allin's protege. It was like, I understand you don't have a father.
Somebody said if Cody Rhodes ever comes back to AEW and he and Christian need to have a program, that's just. I think somebody said, like, your dad used to talk about hard times. He talked about how wrestling was a family business. Well, your dad's not part of the family anymore, Cody, and his hard times are being dead.
I mean, an important part of his gimmick now is finding as many ways as possible to say your dad is dead.
And just his turtleneck gets a little higher every time.
He wore a white one this time.
He did. Because he's in that rare form. So, yeah, Luchasaurus, the actual, on paper, TNT champion, against Darby Allin, who is accompanied by Nick Wayne.
He's the pinch champion. He gets in and does all the work.
Really does. Like, Christian behaves as the TNT champion at all times except when it actually has to be defended.
Right. And this is interesting because they've never really gone in depth about like what kind of weird hold or mind control he seems to be exerting over Luchasaurus.
Is there like a sacred conch shell that he's blown in?
Don't know. Yeah. It's going to be interesting when they get to the point where they're like, okay, it's time to break this away.
Yeah. And again, that's something they can do anytime.
Oh,
It's so much fun right now. I hope they've got at least another cycle in it.
There's no need to end it now. It'll be interesting to see how they keep going with that.
It's also nice because Luchasaurus is not a great mic guy, and AEW does not have a lot of like big silent monster figures.
Yeah.
So seeing a match like this where he just gets to like throw Darby around the ring and just be this force of savage destruction, it's fun to see. Just that it's a good spot for him.
He knows what to do. He's had a Marco stun around him before.
Really? A lot of suppressed anger towards that kid coming out. There's a point where I think Darby tries to, it's off the turnbuckle. He tries to do, it's not a coffin drop, it's just like a diving tackle, and he just literally bounces off Luchasaurus' chest. Like
yes, he does.
He doesn't even step back. He just sort of squares his shoulders, and Darby just ricochets in a different direction.
He knows he's at least as tough as that coffin.
And
the one they used last week.
which Darby has said that maybe his back is still hurting a little bit from that, which understandable. He had tape around his ribs, which at some point Luchasaurus rips off and chokes him with.
Yes,
It's just a great professional wrestling spot. It was just a great match where like Christian's where he needs to be, just the like sleazy manager on the outside. Luchasaurus is the unstoppable force of destruction, and Darby is just the guy who's still throwing himself at that over and over again. And absorbing inhuman amounts of punishment.
Oh man,
the bit with the stairs.
Yes, that's right. Yes, he puts the stairs on Darby and then climbs up them.
So that felt like a Zucker Abrams Zucker spot where you just have like this escalating comedy. Because at first, Luchasaurus
that's a gag in the background of something, of other things going on.
It's like a rule of three comedy spot where first he throws Darby into the stairs, and then he grabs him by the head and slams his skull into the stairs. And then while Darby's on the ground, Luchasaurus picks the stairs up, sets them on top of Darby, and walks up the stairs slowly, one step at a time, and gets back in the ring. And I was just like, yeah, nowhere else to go with that.
It is wrestling. This is the stuff in wrestling I live for. It's just,
oh man, the
absolute violence that is it's also Looney Tunes in itself.
Oh man, trying to think if there's any other, because again, really most of it is just Luchasaurus slinging Darby around the ring. And every time Darby starts to get a little momentum, he just gets shut down and hurt more. At one point, Christian comes up to Nick Wayne with a towel. I think it's
he tells him to throw it in. Right?
Yeah, because Luchasaurus has Darby in a torture rack position on his shoulders, but Nick refuses to do it. And I'll be honest, part of me thought we were going to see a heel turn from Nick Wayne because they laid a little bit of groundwork with that. With Darby forgiving AR Fox, even though
it's unfortunately a regular kind of thing in AEW where proteges tended to betray their mentors.
What's the line from The Last Jedi?
Except for the time that the mentor betrayed the protege, like Christian did.
Yeah, that's why he got ahead of it all.
He saw what was going on.
Yeah. So Darby gets a near fall towards the end of the match when he actually hits a Canadian Destroyer on Luchasaurus off the top turnbuckle, which looked really awesome. Again, for a big guy, Luchasaurus he got that over incredibly.
Move, yes.
Darby goes up for a coffin drop, but while he's up there, he sees Christian hit Nick Wayne in the back with a chair and set him up for the concerto.
He's got to make the choice.
And before he can, Luchasaurus hits him from behind, and he just wishbones down on top of the ring, the buckle.
Like Christian is looking up at him going, if you do it, I will concerto him.
You think you can do that before I do this? Come on, punk. And so after he hits Darby,
not Punk, not
no, get him out of here. Who saw that? So after Luchasaurus takes Darby off the rope, he basically does like Hulk does to Loki in the Avengers movie. He just grabs him, hits him with 2 tombstones, and then a rear lariat into the turnbuckle. Just not even like I'm gonna do one move and pin you. I'm gonna do a move. I'm gonna do a move. I'm gonna hit you again, and then I'm gonna pin you. And the only thing that doesn't quite work is because there's such a radical height difference between Luchasaurus and Darby. The clearance between Darby's head and the mat on those tombstones is really apparent. And there's not really a way to avoid that when like a 6'8" guy is doing it on like a 5'6" guy.
Not really. But at least he's well protected.
Yeah. Yeah, his spine needs all the protection.
At least Luchasaurus is protecting him because Darby's not going to protect himself.
I can imagine him trying to like shimmy down a little further and Luchasaurus having to hold him in place.
No.
Luchasaurus wins, retains his TNT championship, and Christian isn't done yet because immediately he charges into the ring, slides the chair under Darby's head and sets up for a concerto, and Luchasaurus is holding Nick Wayne to make him watch. But there's one thing that Christian hasn't counted on, which is that there are apparently members of the locker room in AEW who also have fathers, and they come rushing out.
Yeah, that was an interesting touch. It's like just part of the locker room empties out, and it's just like, stop it.
This guy is just such a jerk. Stop him. And so they retreat to the back. And
I can't wait to hear him call them all fatherless.
He's just forming a spreadsheet now.
It's Christian versus the Dead Dad Club. It's just
but that was just a fun match. Just again, great for what Luchasaurus and Darby and Christian all need to be.
It is it's like again. It's like wrestling can be all about the mighty struggle between two people. It can also be insanely silly, and then it can be a nice mesh of the two, which is this.
The silly people doing seriously horrible things to each other.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And like I said, we'll get to that even more as we go on. But I gave that one a 4 1/4. Just really enjoyed it. Only other noteworthy thing I wanted to mention is that after the event, Christian was taking questions at the media event. He was wearing the TNT belt, and somebody asked him if Adam Copeland, who is apparently finishing up his current contract with WWE this month, might be coming to AEW. And Christian's response, again, there were a lot of things he could have said to this, but I think he picked the best answer, which was, I only talk about myself, Pete, and Luchasaurus, and I have no friends other than Luchasaurus. I'll leave it at that. And it's just like, chef's kiss. Thank you, Christian. You didn't have to give us that on the way out, but you did.
It's amazing.
Yeah. All right, so next up, we have a match that I was already looking forward to as a match between two guys I really like and who haven't really had a chance to shine recently. I was not prepared for the meat extravaganza.
It's time for that match. All right.
It's one of those moments where I'm thinking something as I watch it, and Gene and I are watching it, and we're making the joke, and then we realize the crowd, like 10,000 people in this stadium, are there ahead of us.
What's incredible is like there's a reference to what I think it was before the crowd started chanting it.
Yeah, Excalibur drops the Big E line.
Yeah, and then the crowd,
which they can't hear the commentary, so they just got there on their own.
They did. So a little bit behind the scenes for me when I was watching this is like I enjoy watching the pay-per-views and everything, but I don't really focus unless it's like I'm with everybody sitting around watching it at the same time.
Right.
So I'm playing a game while I'm playing it, to keep my attention. And this match starts going, and I'm kind of paying attention. I am paying attention. But then the chant started, and I had to pause, and I just kind of went, okay, what's happening here?
It gets you in like that. So to go back to what the match actually is, it is Miro versus Powerhouse Hobbs in just a singles grudge match. No title on the line, no gimmick. These two guys have just wanted to get their hands on each other. And it is, as Excalibur said, quoting the great Big E Langston, two big meaty men slapping meats.
It is 100% that.
I spent a lot of time today thinking how much of a Big E impression I could do and get away with without Long Walk Talks getting any angry letters. But yeah, so I love Miro. I think he's been great in AEW, and I understood why he apparently, after he recovered from an arm injury, decided he was going to stay until there was a creative pitch that he really felt like he connected with.
That's fair.
And it seemed like Collision.
I understand that too, because like coming off an injury, it's like I could potentially go right back in and injure myself again. I would like for there to be a good reason for me to want to hit that, to be in that position.
Yeah, and coming back, he is the Redeemer has forsaken his God because his God has forsaken him. So he has nothing to lose and is just coming out to crush people. Hobbs is going to write the next chapter of the Book of Hobbs.
You got to hate those lover spats.
Yeah. But, they settled it, I think, in the healthiest way they could. Yeah, no, it really is just they're two huge, powerful guys, and like the match starts with them just doing your basic collar and elbow tie up and trying to like power the other guy down.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the most basic things, but you really don't see it that much, especially not in AEW, where that isn't the style of wrestling for most of their top guys. And again, at first it's just great. Like there's some throws, a bit of grappling, a couple of chops, and then the crowd starts to just kind of get into it.
They do.
It starts as I think Miro's on the outside and he's coming back up the stairs, and somebody just starts chanting, "Slap that meat, slap that meat," which they do. They get into the ring and they start trading forearms, just throwing their shots at each other. Meat, meat, meat.
The whole
meat.
arena just chanting meat.
This is not like two guys at ringside. This is the whole place lighting up.
A Sunday night, I'm looking on Twitter and I see several people going, the entire arena is chanting meat right now.
They do the spot where after the forearm trade, Miro winds up back for the big one, and the crowd just goes, "Oh, meat!" right as he hits him. He does the belt the belfry spot that Sheamus does, where he gets Hobbs over the ropes and just lays into his chest, and just 11 times in a row, meat. He wrestles Hobbs up onto the turnbuckle, goes for a superplex. This is meat.
Clap, 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 clap.
This is meat. They get down to the ring, and later on the crowd is chanting, "Meat forever."
Yes.
Meat forever.
That was the crescendo. And it was
Miro gets Hobbs in the game over, and Hobbs manages to power out by getting his feet under him. Holy meat! Holy meat! Again, I don't want to sound like there wasn't an excellent match going on, because there absolutely was, and the fact that both men started playing into this is a big part of the reason why. But,
yeah.
oh my gosh, this is why I love live wrestling.
I gotta imagine it was sincerely hard for either Miro or Hobbs to just not start laughing.
Hobbs did look a little bit like he wasn't quite sure. He's like, okay, I'll go with this. But Miro just looked even harder and more Bulgarian than ever. So
that's a sign you're not trying not to laugh. Unless you're legitimately pissed. When you look that determined, you're just like, if I make any other facial expression, I'm just going to be laughing.
But yeah, I had to talk myself down from giving this one a 5, because I wanted to, just because it was so much fun to watch.
I mean, on the meat scale, it's easily a 6.
And the crowd was loving it. It wasn't quite at that level, if I'm stepping back and being honest, but oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And both guys just really got to show their stuff. There was a great little bit where Hobbs... he does a belly-to-belly on Miro, and he makes it look like he's, suplexing a really huge guy, like it's a struggle, he can barely get him over. And then he does a fisherman suplex a second later like he weighs nothing. And it's just this nice moment of okay, now he's picking up his rhythm, and now he's really... It also could have been the first one was just like a bad lift or something, but, I'll go with the story that I see. But, just such a fun match to watch, and just seeing the crowd just engage with that. Oh, man. Sadly, they cannot meet forever. All good meats must come to an end. And at the end of it, Hobbs tries to put Miro in his own game over submission, just that sort of over the back crossface. Miro manages to get out and hit Hobbs with his spine buster, and then stomps the back, locks in the game over, and Hobbs has no choice but to tap out. So... great match. Miro wins, and the crowd is just giving him a huge ovation.
Oh, yeah.
And Hobbs, he's not immune to this. He's been kind of the bad guy and all that, but he holds out his hand. And he doesn't just hold it out for your straightforward handshake. He does it for the predator, the grab.
Oh yeah, I saw the screenshots.
I
saw the screenshots and the captions. It was
And Miro takes it, and they just hold for a second. They don't quite hug.
Well, he's hesitant.
Yeah.
But he does it, and he's like, okay, if you're genuine, then yeah.
Yeah. And then as he turns to leave, Hobbs immediately attacks him from behind, because even the best meat can go bad. I'm going to leave that behind in this segment. But yeah, so he's choking Miro on the ground. He's not done. And then music hits.
Who's here to save the day?
The words "hot" and "flexible" appear on the screen.
This could be anybody.
For a second, I thought it was an emergency delivery from Little Caesars, but no. That's not their motto.
That's hot and ready.
There it is. It is, as Nigel McGuinness termed her, the Missus of the Meat. And CJ Perry makes her debut in All Elite Wrestling, comes out.
I'm pretty sure I saw a video called that once.
Only once?
That's all I needed.
I may have come across it once or twice.
Across it, you devil. Anyway, so she comes to the top of the ramp. I almost got out of that.
What you should have said was nothing.
Comes to the top of the ramp, takes a moment to pose, and then kicks off both her heels, very sensibly, charges down to the ring, grabs a chair, comes running into the ring, and lays it across Hobbs' back. And he,
you don't want to do that.
Yeah, he
That'll
barely
just
reacts.
make him mad.
Because, she is still like a 130-pound woman, and he is an enormous man. But he stands, turns to face her, but that gives Miro the chance to grab the chair, whack him, and send him running out of the ring.
And then...
whacked his meat?
Yep.
Might you say?
In front of everyone.
Well, his meat wasn't going to whack itself, so...
And then CJ was looking for,
just like a
kudos
hello
for,
or a...
Yeah, for helping. And he just kind of he looks upset at her and just leaves on his own.
I couldn't quite hear what he said watching it live. Apparently he shouted, "You're not real" at her.
Oh, they did a reference to that.
I was wondering, he's like, that she's not real. That woman back there.
Yeah, there was the woman was talking about a guy. It's like she was like that guy, like the woman on the plane who was having an episode. Apparently, it turns out.
Actually having a psychotic episode. I feel a little bit bad for making fun of her.
I mean, I don't feel bad for making fun of the video.
Well, it's a reference. I mean, it's not really. I don't know if it's really. It wasn't really making fun of her. It was more like he's also going through something. Clearly, I think that's what they're trying to convey. I think.
Well, I guess clearly they'd been talking about her coming over for a while, but they didn't want to just have her immediately step into being Lana and Rusev again.
Right.
So they're going to do something maybe a little more with this. What I didn't notice at the time until somebody pointed afterwards, she doesn't get a name tag or a nameplate when she comes out. It's just, and it doesn't appear on the video. It just shows like hot and flexible, and then she comes out. The commentary doesn't even call her by a name, not Lana or CJ Perry or anything else. It's just like, well, it's Miro's wife. Because apparently this deal got finalized, even though they've been talking about it for a while, it got finalized apparently pretty late this past week. So they may not have actually settled on an in-ring name for her yet.
Maybe not.
So, yeah, that may be something they have to figure out between now and the next Collision.
Or Tony Khan only believes a woman has as much value as her husband.
Thanks, dogs, for chiming in.
It's like, so how much is AJ Lee's cut going to be after this week?
Or she's not real.
Please don't write me letters.
All right, well, you are wrong about Tony Khan not valuing women, because right after that match, we get a AEW TBS Championship match with Chris Statlander defending her TBS title against Ruby Soho. Speaking of videos you may have come across, Ruby is joined at the ring by Saraya.
That is one of the most genuine laughs I've ever heard Dave give before.
I was looking up because I wasn't sure if he'd get that, but it's like, no.
That's
well played.
If there's one thing he knows about her.
I'm giving you the clap the way the New Day tried to give Saraya the clap.
Anyway.
If you weren't the boss,
You want to talk about meat slapping together?
if you weren't the boss, you'd be an HR nightmare.
It really would.
I am the boss and I'm an HR nightmare.
That's what I'm saying.
Writing yourself up.
Exactly.
Lengthy, angry reports on your own desk every morning. But yeah, so TBS title match. Only women's match on the proper card. But I actually really liked it. Oh, I don't think I said it for the last one. Miro versus Hobbs. I gave it
Meat out of 5.
4 3/4. Like really, really close to damn perfect, except for the fact that it was everything that makes me love pro wrestling and what it could be. It's just that the story itself was just these two guys want to beat each other up, and that's all you need. But I need something little more.
And then there were other elements to it, and then the crowd made it something extra special.
That I feel like the crowd did 30% of the work to get it to where it was.
The crowd really seasoned that meat. All right, I think we're done.
Yes, leaving all that behind. So, yes.
Are we?
Well, no, because Saraya does make an appearance.
She does. She does. And we are going to respect her as the AEW Women's World Champion. She's left that part of her life behind, and we can do so as well, regardless of what's been left in her behind.
That was a whole other name.
Cut the last 10 seconds.
I will not.
I was going to say, he's the editor. He's definitely not.
This is going to be the one Mom starts listening to.
No.
Anyway, so...
I'm sorry I Chris said all that.
Your impression of me is getting better all the time.
Thank you. I'm trying to help. Shut up.
Okay. Attempt number 5. Chris Statlander defending the TBS Championship against Ruby Soho. Now, I actually have loved Ruby since she showed up in AEW. She didn't really make that much of an impression with me or on me with the Riot Squad back in WWE, but I don't know, just something about her work as like the outcast or the runaway ever since she showed up. I think it was back at All Out 2021 maybe, or was it
Something
Double or
like
Nothing?
that,
Yeah, so with Toni Storm kind of being a multi-time women's champion and now also getting her own arc, and Saraya now being the women's champion, I was a little worried that Ruby was going to fade off. So I'm glad that she got a chance to shine on a pay-per-view.
And her setup for this whole thing is basically how much she needs to be a champion at this point.
It's just like, Tony just lost it. Soraya's just won it.
Tony lost it in more ways than one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I don't know if you saw the promo on Collision, but Soraya and Tony were giving an interview backstage. Or, sorry, Soraya and Ruby were giving an interview backstage, and Ruby was trying to insist that the Outcasts were as strong as ever and nothing was going to divide them. But she had to admit she had just seen Tony in the parking lot half naked throwing shoes at birds. But never mind. Yeah. Tony Storm just, how did somebody call it? The fallen starlet of Tony Storm is just one of my favorite gimmicks in women's wrestling right now. Just she lost her title and immediately became Nora Desmond from Sunset Boulevard.
That's exactly what it is.
Just, she's got her robe on and she's got her hand spread over her collarbone and she's just like
her hair.
at everything.
Her hair is in an old time Hollywood starlet style.
Yeah, just the high curls and everything.
Yeah.
Oh man, and she's breaking up because Soraya pinned her to win the world title at All In.
She's got that kind of I'm trying to think of a good word, like boozy archetype of like the lady who's fallen on hard times and is drinking herself drinking for comfort.
Yeah, the Norma Desmond.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know. Well, I haven't seen the movie. I'm just giving impressions for people who also have not seen it. I have an idea of what that is.
But it's just that sort of like she's still got all the glamour, but just the crazy is starting to push out from further under it. But speaking of the actual people in the match, not to foreshadow anything about Tony, but Ruby and Statlander, I really like the setup of this because Statlander is not the most gifted technician, but she is a phenomenal athlete, and Ruby is just going to have to out-wrestle her if she wants to have a chance at winning this.
Something the commentary went on about was about how Statlander is bigger in terms of like a women's size.
Yeah.
So she's a more formidable opponent that way.
Yeah, well, it's just that, like, at one point, I think she puts Ruby in a gory special, like that stretch over her back, and then just drops into a full squat while she's doing that.
Yep.
At one point, she cut a promo backstage while doing squats with Renee Paquette across her shoulders. Like, she's just very, very strong. And, yeah, so the whole story of the match is, Ruby trying to, like, catch her with, like, leg sweeps and other things to just, like, get her down, and Statlander powering through. Another note about Statlander's gear. It was apparently inspired by Derek Zoolander.
Yep.
She tagged Ben Stiller on Twitter, who commented that she was ridiculously good looking in it, which was just a nice little wholesome bit of wrestling, even if I'm not sure Stiller had any idea what was going on. Otherwise not too much story of the actual match itself. Just goes along pretty well. Eventually, Ruby hits her destination unknown finisher on Statlander. When Statlander kicks out at 2, Ruby, she doesn't just turn to the ref. She, like, crawls halfway across the ring on her knees to the ref and, like, tries to throw herself on him. Just like, what's it? And he, like, falls back in the corner trying to like, yes, it was 2. Stay off of me. But while she's doing that, Soraya has set up the paint can in one corner and then gone to the other corner to distract the ref. Ruby goes over, grabs the can, but suddenly Tony Storm is crawling out from under the ring. She just yanks the can out of Ruby's hand. Ruby stares out at her, and Tony just, with this blissful smile on her face, just sprays the can aimlessly into the air several times, just looking like a child who's just gotten like a silly string at a party.
Oh my goodness.
And Ruby has no idea what to do with that, but she turns back into the ring and immediately gets hit with the Sunday Night Fever from Statlander, and gets pinned for the 3. And after it's over, Tony just walks back up the ramp, still with that, very heavily medicated smile on her face. I love it, and I hope they keep going with this because, the crazier Tony gets, then the harder the Outcasts try to pretend it's not a problem, the funnier it's going to be.
They're eventually going to have to kick her out. Clearly, it can't stay.
Eventually, but I hope we, at least get another, at least through Grand Slam on this.
And then she's going to go nuts.
Oh, she hasn't even started the crazy yet. And so, I gave that. I
want there to be at least some form of some scene she causes where that ends up. Either she can do it organically or just they somehow just do the makeup where she's got the mascara streaming down her face.
Like they leave a note in the locker room to tell her she's out of the group, and then they have a match later on and she just comes down the ramp looking like Cruella DeVille.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's going to be glorious. And again, that's the best part of the Starlet is you watch them and you just know the meltdown is going in slow process, but when the eruption comes, that's when the real magic is. So yeah, I give that 3 3/4. Again,
Nice.
solid women's match. I really like Statlander as champion, and yeah, excited to see where they go with both plot lines. Alrighty. Oh, another neat thing, by the way, is that Statlander works in ASL in her entrances. She signs More Than a Woman, and she signed TBS champion after winning. I looked into that. Apparently, it was just something she learned because she'd met some deaf fans at shows and was like,
okay. That's nice.
They always feel like it's a little harder to connect, so I just learned some basic phrases to try and make that easier.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right, speaking of connections, good segue. Next up, we have Ricky Starks versus the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, in a strap match. Now,
so the setup to this was interesting, you said.
yeah, so for ever since his return on Collision, CM Punk had made the point that nobody had ever pinned him to take the AEW World Champion, and so therefore, since he still had the old belt, he was the real World Champion until somebody defeated him.
Well, forget all that.
Yeah, so you have Ricky Starks building and building and building to a match with Punk here in Chicago. That's up, but none of this is Starks' fault, and clearly nobody backstage has any will against the kid. But the one element they can pull out of this feud is that Ricky the Dragon Steamboat did get involved at a special referee at some point.
He did.
And Starks started attacking him during a match, and so they decided Ricky Starks was going to have a match with the Dragon. And so he comes out and he signs the contract for his strap match with the Dragon. And then, in that classic wrestling turn, Ricky Steamboat explains, the name on the contract is The Dragon, but I'm not the only one who's called The Dragon. Dun, 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 dun. Bryan Danielson, who, again, was not supposed to be recovered from a badly broken arm until October, comes out because the company needs him, and Tony Khan has sent up the LaBelle signal or whatever it is that calls him whenever people need their heads kicked in. There we go, LaBelle light. Yeah, so apparently Danielson wasn't even medically cleared till earlier this week. Obviously, they weren't planning for things with Punk to go the way they did. So this was a match that was thrown together at very much the last minute because they didn't want Starks to just be shuffled off to the side with nothing to do.
Right.
You can kind of tell because the thing about a strap match is that for the most part it really is, okay, my turn to hurt you, your turn to hurt me, rinse, repeat, 20 plus minutes. Also, Danielson, if you look closely, does not throw a single shot with his right arm. He's clearly favoring it and is like protecting that injury while he still gets back to 100%.
Right, as it would be expected.
All of that said, this was a brutal, brutal match. Because officially it was 22 minutes long. The match did not officially start until after Starks had attacked Danielson for about 5 minutes and busted him open because he attacked Danielson after Danielson had taken the strap on, but before they put it on Ricky. So he just beats him around the ring and then finally rolls him back in, takes the strap, and then the official match starts. And 90% of that is just them whipping each other bloody, including what looked like a lot of unprotected face shots with that leather strap.
Yeah.
Oof. Again, basic storytelling, but you have to show up and you have to commit to it, and these men both really did.
There's they put out a picture that they took of Bryan Danielson after the match that went around on Twitter.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, immediately I looked at it, I was like, someone should license that and make it an album cover because that's fucking beautiful.
Yeah, because he's just got clear blue eyes staring out from just a red curtain across the entire top of his face.
This 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
Blood is just streamed down his face.
So apparently Tony Khan, maybe in an act of drunken binge spending after he had to let Punk go, shelled out for...
Well, maybe they got so many plays off of it.
You know what? It would have to be a lot to justify the expense, but for whatever reason, yes. Now and again, Danielson comes out to the Final Countdown, which he last came out to at Forbidden Door. And after that show, Tony Khan explained that had cost about as much as a contract for a new wrestler.
Right.
In other news, Sonny Kiss has not had their contract renewed with AEW, but...
Well, I mean, something did open up because someone did exit right before that event.
Yeah. So it's like, you know what, we got this anyway. Get Europe back on the phone.
It's like, you know what, we're already spending money, just go.
Yeah. But no, it is a really good match for the basic layout they have to work with, and just for the fact that this was not at all the plan even 5 or 6 days ahead of time. And
more kudos for the man who Tony Khan said, if I can't book AEW, you turn to him.
yeah. Like this is the reason that Danielson is considered. The word is that he's going to be stepping into the role that Punk had on Collision, as just sort of like face of it,
Yeah.
a lot of backstage influence, and yeah, this kind. I don't want to say it's selflessness for wrestlers to like work through injury, because I don't want to say it's good for people to feel compelled to do that, but there isn't a lot that guy won't sacrifice for the match that needs to happen.
Well, it's funny because it's like that's something that unfortunately probably can't ever go away in wrestling, because part of wrestling, well, one, you had to do it in the old days because if you weren't on the road working matches, you weren't earning.
Right.
At least today with contracts, when you have recuperation time, you can still get paid.
Yeah.
But you pay for it in other ways, like the longer you're out of public view, the harder it's going to be to maintain any momentum you had before you had to be written out. So in a lot of ways, it's not exactly altruistic. It's also a way. It's like, oh, I gotta keep my status.
And in an element, it definitely is. Although, to Danielson's credit, on top of everything else, he said in the interviews afterwards that he feels Ricky carried him through the match. Which, when Danielson is saying you carried him, I feel like that's got to feel like you've reached a certain level.
That's an incredible compliment, and it's an incredible endorsement of somebody.
Yeah.
To say it's like, oh, Bryan Danielson is saying Ricky Starks carried him through the match. It's like, that's something.
And I feel like there is, for all that we've just said, that Danielson is like a give it up for the company kind of guy. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure he would have done this for just anybody.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think somebody like Starks that he believes in enough and is like, you know what, this kid, like, he deserves to have this show in front of Chicago, and I'm going to do whatever I can.
Especially after having to be forced into retirement, I think he understands the value of also, like, if I don't have to be there, then I will step back.
Yeah. He also, Danielson, mentioned after the show that he said it was important to me that we get this right, because my last strap match was with somebody that I really loved, because his last one before this had been against The Fiend.
That
at
was
Royal
part
Rumble
of his promo.
2020. Yeah. Just, and again, that's one of those things that out of context just sounds insane, and maybe a little bit in context, but it just,
in wrestling context, no, you get it immediately.
So yeah, good match all the way through. Ricky Steamboat gets involved eventually, who, by the way, Ricky Steamboat looks good for like normal person 70. Not even like professional wrestling 70. He looks good for normal person 70.
He's always aged well, I think. And I think he's always been really good at taking care of himself. Were you? I mean, I'm not saying I hated it, but the back and forth between him and Nigel McGuinness was interesting.
I didn't hear much of that just because I was talking with someone during the match. But there were a lot of just like, it felt like lines that didn't get picked up on, or like a joke McGuinness was trying to start that Steamboat wasn't going to go ahead with.
They were both trying, but I don't think the chemistry was quite there, and it kind of overpowered everything because the other people at the table didn't get much of a chance to talk.
Yeah. Now, thankfully, Steamboat didn't have to stay behind the table forever, because eventually Big Bill...
Yeah, because he came in to even the odds after Big Bill interfered.
Yeah, so he throws some shots into Big Bill. Bill turns around and grabs him the choke, and Danielson just kind of heaves Starks over the rings to land on Bill to break that up. And then there's a great little shot of Steamboat going back to commentary, and it looks like he's wiping his knuckles down with a moist towelette, just having handled his business.
Just doing that innocent old man whistling.
Yep. All right, so again, Danielson is bleeding bad for most of this match, which makes the end of it where he's, like you said, got this very metal-looking crazy man face announcing that he's going to kick his fucking head in, which is his AEW catchphrase. Not quite the same as yes, but so he does.
But it's got some bite to it, I will say.
So he does those Danielson stomps on Ricky's face and puts him in the LaBelle lock. Ricky screams and screams, but he's still not going to tap out. So Danielson just reapplies the hold by taking the leather strap and wrapping it all the way around Ricky's neck and just pulling him fully off the ground from the waist up. And with some of the best face acting I've ever seen in wrestling, you just see the light go out in Ricky's eyes as like his entire face just freezes and he slumps over. Like it was actually a little uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
But he does pass out, and Bryan Danielson is declared the winner. Oh man, good brutal match.
I always appreciate those kind of endings where it's important to note. It's like he passed out. It's like the Bret Hart Stone Cold match where it's like he didn't give up. He passed out. So it's like he lost, but he didn't lose.
You know, and again, it was, as someone pointed out, it is so wonderful.
Or I should say he lost, but he didn't get beat.
No, he did not. He never gave up. But it's so awesome in AEW to see Danielson presented as this that like. As someone pointed out, no matter how many times he'd won the world championship or how many WrestleManias he'd won at or anything else, Bryan Danielson was always the underdog in those matches.
He really was. They never really gave him the chance to be dominant.
Yeah, and on Collision, when his music hits and he comes out, Ricky Starks gets to have an, oh, shit. face.
Even at his evilest vegan.
Yeah, he still needed Eric Redbeard to back him up.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, so I gave that match 4 1/4. Again, for all of the craziness that went into it, they delivered, and Ricky Starks is still looking like a big deal coming out of it, and they've got him on track for whatever they want to do next. And so, getting into the next, kind of the opposite of that. Actually, hold on, I think I jumped. Sorry. The next match was a little surprising to me because for all the people involved, I did not think that this one was kind of going to be my popcorn match. This one was the Blackpool Combat Club, Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta against Eddie Kingston and Katsuyori Shibata. Tag team match, no particular stakes apart from Eddie Kingston just really, really wanted to get his hands on Claudio Castagnoli again.
Yeah, this really was just here's a tag match if you want it.
And I love all these guys. It's great seeing them, but it did feel like a lot of, hey, here's a reminder of where the story is going to go eventually. Like when Claudio and Kingston eventually have a rematch in Ring of Honor, or honestly, some of their exchanges, I'd be really excited to see Claudio and Shibata square off at some point because they traded some European uppercuts that were just really nasty looking. So again, not a bad match by any stretch, but it did sort of feel like a bit of a breather.
It absolutely was.
Not a lot of big moments, not a lot of super intense moments, just, good 15-minute start to finish story that sets up where they want all this stuff to go next.
Claudio got the pin on Eddie after a surprise European uppercut.
And they did, so Eddie turns into it. Claudio hits him with the uppercut, pins him, 1, 2, 3, and Eddie's arm goes up a second late. So he's just stunned enough for 3, but he's not down. And that's, again, nice way to protect Kingston. They did do that 2 matches in a row because that also happened in the next one, which we'll get to.
Right.
But AEW's gotten a little better at not having too many spots get repeated, but that one did stick out a little bit. Otherwise, really good. They're keeping the thing going where Claudio's just ignoring Eddie, like the X trying, just studiously avoiding eye contact by like walking to the other side of the road or whatever. Even when like he tags out, he just immediately turns and stares outside to the ring floor. Even when Eddie's getting like beaten up like 3 feet away from him.
It's like they spotted each other on the street and Claudio is like, oh God, and he starts looking away and trying to walk faster and Eddie's like, hey, I'm not done with you.
Eddie does come out with a shirt that says Claudio sucks eggs, which is
as a Terry Funk reference.
There it is. Okay, I knew that had to be something specific.
Terry Funk famously, when he was feuding with Dusty Rhodes, wore a shirt that said Dusty sucks eggs.
Oh, Eddie, even your hard Scrabble insults are steeped in wrestling lore. Honestly, wouldn't surprise me based on the way this goes that Claudio's next step in his ignore Eddie Kingston campaign might be to like come out to both Eddie and Shibata and be like, all right, I'm tired of having you chase me. I'm going to give you, pointing at Shibata, an ROH title shot, and just give the shot to Eddie's tag partner just to screw with him.
Oh, possibly.
But so I gave it 3.5. Again, good work from all men, but this was one where they took the foot off the gas for a little bit because they knew what had come before and they knew what was going to come next, and the crowd needed a breather. Let's see. All right, because the next one up is kind of the opposite of the Danielson Starks. This is the one they have been building for a long time, and actually they got a little heat for not putting this one at All In, but I'm glad they put it where they did because. Man, Coming off of the All-In tag match where Takeshita got the pin on Omega, he now faces Kenny Omega in a singles match, accompanied by Don Callis. And which Kenny has been wanting to do this ever since both Callis and Takeshita separately betrayed him and separately stabbed him with screwdrivers in the process of doing so.
What a weird coincidence.
Is it just him? Does he attract screwdrivers?
He should not have gone to England.
Yeah, so Takeshita comes out with it was like the cloak that Jigsaw wore in the early Saw movies, that kind of like over the head.
Well, that, and he came out to a theme that I can only describe as, you know that one video of the cat standing on the keyboard and that someone captioned a cat wrote a horror movie soundtrack? That's what is that? I think that's Callis's theme.
It's like
it's a hold on a scare note.
Yeah, it's the perfect thing for Callis, who does not get enough respect for the amount of heat that he just generates.
Sure, also,
around.
but if I have the option, I'm just going to mute it till he gets in the ring.
Nothing wrong with that. Pity those poor bastards who bought tickets live. Kenny gets his usual...
Actually, I have a story about that. At the bookstore, Dave will sometimes switch up the music, and he'll put it on the Cinemagic station, which is, play music from movies, primarily movie scores. And sometimes there's just a block of horror movie music that all of a sudden, in the bookstore, middle of the day, things get unbearably tense for no good reason.
There was back when the Onion had its like video news section, they had a story called Ominous Music Mysteriously Accelerating. And it's just people all around the world trying to figure out.
Oh no, the music's diegetic.
They can all hear it. Yeah, so Kenny gets his usual list of like accomplishments that Justin Roberts does before he enters. The fact that they're actually in Chicago makes it a little easier for him to fit in the North Carolina bit, because that started as like a Michael Jordan reference that Kenny just found funny and they've never taken out. But yeah, so Kenny Omega and Konosuke Takeshita just are going at it in the singles match that's been building for months and months. And wow, does it show that Takeshita has a very long and glorious future professional wrestling ahead of him, because he is just matching Kenny beat for beat on this, and Kenny is giving him everything he's got. I thought, like, seeing Kenny versus Ospreay, I was like, wow, how many people can get Kenny at this level? Like watching from Forbidden Door, and then I see Takeshita like already almost there, and he's maybe 27, 28 years old. Like, oh my gosh, they are very smart in putting the chips on him that they are.
This was a good match. I'm just not into Japanese wrestling as much as they would like me to be to really enjoy this.
So, like, is it just like the style of it?
No, it's not the style. It's not the style. It's just like well, it's the fact that we're how many matches in at this point?
11?
And we've got another 2 matches that are an hour to go.
Wow, that was actually correct. 11. Yeah, that's fair. This one does end up going over 30 minutes.
I think at this point I kind of like if the Claudio Eddie Kingston tag match had been a breather, but then the fatigue set in anyway.
See, I think, admittedly, part of the reason that I'm so I'll go ahead and say I'm pretty warm on the last couple of matches on this card are because when Gene and I were watching it on Sunday, we got kind of a late start because we made like a Labor Day dinner first, and so by the time this match started, we were both really tired. There was a Wi-Fi connection issue that took like 20 minutes to resolve. Got like 5 minutes in, and we're both just like, let's call it. We'll finish this tomorrow. So I actually,
you were fresher on this part.
Pretty much, yeah. So I came back in. I admit, maybe if I'd watched it like start to finish the night of, I would have also been kind of there.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be down on this match. It's just like, because the last 2 matches of the night woke me back up. I was back in, but I just around here, I just kind of like I get this is good, but man, it's just not connecting with me like I want it to.
That's fair. See, for me, I think Kenny does that style in a particular way that because I feel like with Japanese wrestling, you have kind of this mix between just sort of your Minoru Suzuki, just your kind of like MMA style, like strong style, as they call it, just like stiff hits and forearms and just every move looking like it's about to knock somebody out. And then you've got kind of more of your like Ibushi and Tanahashi that's a little more like more high flying, more stylized.
Sure.
And Kenny, I just find it interesting because I feel like he hybridizes those. He's got the high-flying thing, but he's also got moves like the V-trigger or cells that just make it look like a part of his head has just been knocked off of the rest of his body.
Right.
He takes another landing spot on his head, which I really wish he would stop doing. There's one bit where he tries to do a Hurricane Rana on Takeshita off the turnbuckle. Takeshita catches him and just like slingshots him back over, and Kenny slams face first into the second turnbuckle pad. And it's amazingly well placed because like Takeshita had to get him like exactly right for that, but he does almost nothing to cushion himself. And even commentary points out, like, what's that? What do they call it? His nose? It's smooshed on the turnbuckle pad as he like just slides off like a bird going down a glass window. Oh man, just yeah, I enjoyed this. 30 minutes, but it felt like it moved pretty well. Takeshita's just very comfortable as a heel. I think his strikes look pretty dang devastating. There's a great bit where he knocks Kenny out to the floor outside and starts dragging a bunch of chairs out from under the ring, and starts just laying them around, and then picks one up and very slowly, dramatically raises it over his head. At which point the ref immediately walks up and grabs it and is like, "No, you can't do that. That's illegal." And Takeshita's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and actually does like a little like bowing, like, "Oh, mea culpa, I am so sorry," and gets back in the ring and is like, "Oh, by the way, I think my boot's coming loose. Could you?" And while he's doing that, Cal just grabs the rest of the chairs and stacks them on Kenny's chest so Takeshita can do a senton over the ropes to hit him.
That's right, because it's not illegal if it's already there.
Exactly. It's just
You just can't hit him with it.
Yeah. Who could see how those chairs got there? Yeah.
Kenny thought he was in bed and was pulling covers on himself.
Yeah, the ending to this match also was kind of crazy, just going off of the longest feud in this whole thing has been Screwdrivers versus Kenny Omega.
Yeah. I did enjoy the subversion of that.
Yeah, so Kenny gets knocked up and he's knocked over to the ropes and is lying with his head kind of under the ropes on the apron. Callis pulls the screwdriver out of his jacket, goes to stab him. Kenny rolls away at the last second, and Callis embeds that thing in the apron. So when he takes his hand off, it's just embedded standing upright. And eventually, I think Callis gets hit like with a baseball slide or something, but he's knocked away from a second. Kenny hits some V triggers, but this leaves Takeshita right by the screwdriver, which he picks up as Kenny drags him up for the one-winged angel. You think Takeshita's going to stab him, but the referee catches it, grabs it out of his hand, but that slows him down enough that Kenny can't do the move. Takeshita counters, gets Kenny down, drops his knee pad. I don't think it's a V trigger when you do it just in the middle of the ring, but does a running knee strike to the back of Kenny's head and pins him. And similar to before, Kenny gets his arm up, but a half a second late.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. Again, that could be just the fact that I was watching it the next day, a little more refreshed. But I'm excited to see where they go with this. I think if they want to keep MJF as a face, I would love to see Takeshita be one of the people who might take the belt off of him. Because, again, if you want to have MJF feud against heels more loathsome than he is, Don Callis is right there.
That's true.
Yeah, so good match. I gave it 4.5.
Very nice.
All right, so I was not here watching it with Dogs and Kara, but I'm going to guess that there were probably like reactions all over the place to this one because you have Bullet Club Gold consisting of Austin and Colton Gunn, Jay White, and Juice Robinson.
This was interesting because I missed the build-up to this. I had no idea this team-up was going to happen.
Well, there wasn't really so much build-up as much as on Dynamite they showed a clip from backstage after All In where FTR and the Young Bucks are like talking over the spot where FTR offered a handshake, the Young Bucks refused, and then Bullet Club Gold come up and are just like, haha, you're all losers. So a second later, FTR and the Young Bucks are a team now because as much as they don't like each other, man, screw those guys. So yeah, it is FTR and the Young Bucks against Bullet Club Gold.
Spike can be a powerful bond.
Really can in wrestling. What I liked about this, it is the classic can they coexist storyline, but it's between two tag teams, not just between two individuals.
And funny enough, over the course of the match, they do.
They really do, and it's not just a matter of like, oh, friendly fire or anything else. It's like, can they slide into each other's moves and finishers?
And they do. It's really surprising. Like, I was not expecting at all to see them do the BTE trigger as it was like, was it Dax and Matt?
So it's Dax and Matt Jackson, and Matt does the whole like throw his hand up with a big smile, and Dax just checks an invisible wristwatch.
Yep.
And then does the move anyway because he's like, I'll do it, but I'm not going to act like an idiot the way you do.
And Nick and Cash do. Is it either Nick? I think it's Nick and Cash. They did a shatter machine.
Yeah, because I think Dax gets knocked out of the way, so Nick just slides in to be the other person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of really good segments like that where it's just their whole momentum is built around the moments where they get on each other's wavelength, and then it falls apart when they're not in that rhythm.
Yeah, it's like they're two sides of the same coin when they're working together.
And I always like this when it's the coexist team versus the more functional team, just showing how, in one-on-one, the Bullet Club Gold's not really coming out ahead. But when it's a chance for like Jay White and the Guns to like triple team Dax Wheeler, they're getting out ahead because the other three guys can't form up well enough to stop them.
Mm-hmm. And that factors into the ending of it too.
Yeah. I will say, by the way, just quick note on Juice Robinson. Can you imagine telling people that there's a wrestler in AEW called Jungle Boy and that it's not Juice Robinson?
No, I don't think I could.
I think
it's him, right? No. Try again.
David, I think Gene and Shelby showed you the honeycomb guy for Juice Robinson.
Yes, we had a lot of fun with that
he's
one.
the honeycomb monster.
But no, this is just a fun match. I feel like I blinked and missed when the Guns suddenly became like a tag team at this level, but they're just moving around each other so well.
Either they've been close to it or they hit that point a while ago, and they've finally been able to show it off more.
Yeah, the Bullet Club Gold, because there have been a couple of attempts to do like, we're the Bullet Club in America that have never quite come together. This one might actually have some legs under it. I
think
hope
so.
I think
Got a couple of guns at least.
It does indeed. Nobody ever thought to involve the Guns in the Bullet Club before now. What have wrestlers just been leaving behind?
Well, they're an official nickname that they've latched onto is Bang Bang Club.
Oh, no, the Bang Bang Gang.
Excuse me, that's right. I'm sorry, Bang Bang Gang. It's important that it be at least 25% sexual.
A lot of fun tag match. Only a little over 20 minutes actually, which given for how some of the people involved, I thought it was going to go a lot longer.
And I think what hooked me into it at least was like watching FTR and the coexist thing. The FTR and Young Bucks actually start to gel as a team.
Yeah, I appreciate that. FTR are the ones who are just more visibly unhappy about it, whereas the Bucks are kind of just trying to work around it. But there's a bit where, like, Dax is the face in peril for a little bit. He finally managed to, like, chop his way free from the corner, and he gets out, looks back to his and sees that only the Jacksons are standing there, and he sort of puts his hands on his hips and looks down a little bit. It's like, well, I gotta, and tags them in. Also, crazy. Remember like a week and a half ago where Cash Wheeler's legal troubles were like a major news story in Wrestle Fandom? Remember when we were talking about that?
And then he fights it's weird that he would fight the Gun Club.
Yeah. Well, he's not allowed in anymore. Not until the state of Florida makes its verdict.
I think they'll change his mind when he flashes his strap.
That's one of those things where I'm like, it's bad. No question that what he's accused of is bad, but it doesn't seem like he should never work in the industry again.
No, it's not. If any, I mean, the implications of what he did are bad, but it's really more or less it's not the road rage incident that ended in shots fired.
Right.
So it's just like okay, he lost his head and he's like, I'm holding.
Yeah.
So it's like, if anything, it's like, yes, punish him for that, but it's not like a blacklist situation.
Right.
And then the end of the match, surprisingly, was Bullet Club Gold took advantage of a mistime. Yeah,
so FTR tries to hit a shatter machine on, I think it was Colton Gun, although I still have trouble telling them apart.
A-Gun.
And they managed to break it up. Jay White is right there to hit a Blade Runner on Cash, and Colton just chucks Dax out of the ring. Nick Jackson tries to get in, but Austin Gunn, the legal man, manages to get the pin just before he can make it there.
Yep. And like I said, that factors in because as they're leaving, FTR and Young Bucks, the Young Bucks are going, I'm sorry, I was late. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, there's a nice
moment that.
Where Matt Jackson and Dax Harwood are on the other side of the ring, and they both just look like they're commiserating a little bit.
Yeah,
just like, dang it.
He's like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I don't know what. And then he come around. He's like, I was late. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, I feel like a certain level of subtext got added to this based on the weekend's events, but good to see them all working together.
Very
this is
true.
a fun story.
Very true.
Yeah, and I just didn't overstay its welcome. Told a really fun story that both made the Bullet Club Gold look really good, and also found a lot of fun dynamics in the Jacksons and FTR.
I think also, there's enough evidence there that although they had their differences, they were at least fine with to take the meme, to bring the meme back again, to at least coexist.
Yeah.
In the fact, they weren't looking to actively eject Punk, but they were just like, you know what, we'll just run around each other until we can find common ground.
Yeah.
And I think FTR understands that too.
I think so. All right, so let's see that. I gave that one a 4. Just
Solid,
again,
yeah.
really fun, really exciting. And then up next we come to our main event. The main event being a singles match for the AEW International Champion with Jon Moxley challenging Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy having successfully defended this title in 31 matches over
32.
This is his 32nd
This
match.
is the 32nd?
This is
Okay.
32nd in 326-day title reign.
Yep.
And so this match, Chris, have you seen the most recent John Wick movie?
I have not. I've seen 0 John Wick movies, actually, if I'm telling tales.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll just say there is a segment in the in kind of the climax of the most recent one where John Wick, he's got to fight his way through Paris, and all these assassins are coming at him left and right, and he's got to get to this place before sunrise. And he gets to it's this place in Paris that's like at the top of these like 100 stairs. It's kind of one of those famous like old city walkways.
Oh yeah.
And there's this whole big fight scene where he's fighting his way up the stairs, like weaving over guardrails, like dodging bullets and knocking guys down, brutally fights his way up. He gets to the top, and one of the chief henchmen is just there, immediately kicks him in the chest, and he goes falling back in like a long, unbroken shot down like 50 flights of stairs, hits the bottom, starts to get back up, and then the henchman just slides down, kicks him again, and he goes rolling the rest of the way. That's what I felt like it was for Orange Cassidy to finally get past 31 defenses and see Jon Moxley waiting for him.
I bet.
Oh, man.
So holy shit, this match was incredible.
It was amazing, and I love so much that from even before the match started, Mox made it clear that he didn't view Orange Cassidy as a comedy wrestler. He wasn't going to do the whole, this idiot with his hands. No, he's like, this guy has beaten 31 people. Like, 31 people have tried and failed to beat this guy. The second the bell rings and they start the match, he is attacking Cassidy as seriously as he's ever come at anybody. Because this guy is not your joke wrestler anymore. He is one of the top stars in the company, and he has been on one of the best championship runs. I would say hands down the best, except that I don't know if what Gunther's doing in WWE might be up there as well. But oh my gosh, what Cassidy has done with this title. There was a line that Mox had in the they showed it in the promo video, I think, where he was talking about Cassidy, and he said, "These idiots, they say he's a cosplay wrestler. Okay, if that's the case, who's he pretending to be? Did any of them become the winningest champion in pro wrestling? No, I didn't think so. Because even when he's going to come at the guy and try to take his title, he doesn't, there is not going to be a hint of disrespect here."
This match was nothing short of phenomenal, and I can explain why based on, I'll go ahead and spoil it. Jon Moxley does win. But it is not after it is only after a knockout, drag-out battle where both men are bleeding heavily. Orange Cassidy literally just a steady stream
Oh my
of
gosh,
blood.
the drip does not stop.
Yeah, it is nothing short of just incredibly, and it's like, and funny enough, he says all that. Moxley does go to mock Cassidy in the match, and does pay, but he pays for it. It's just, it is everything I want wrestling to be when I watch a match. It is a match that immediately. Here, I'll say this. I understand in a meta sense when we talk about all of this, like what the whole point of that was. Because what that match was Jon Moxley, the AEW workhorse, aside from Cassidy, goes into that match, and through that match, through all the grit, blood, everything, puts over Orange Cassidy as a main eventer. This match is proving that no matter what you think of him, he deserves to be in the main event. So he's going to get a break, and in order to do that, as is tradition, when you have a lower card title, you have to lose that in order to move up.
Yeah.
So, in one of the most brutal battles I've ever seen in wrestling, Orange Cassidy loses.
Yeah.
And Jon Moxley puts him over big time because he takes the title, but Orange Cassidy wins just in general.
And we can go over the match in more detail, but it's telling that after Mox wins, after he gets the pinfall, the rest of the Blackpool Combat Club comes out. Mox just rolls out of the ring, takes the belt, and walks up the ramp, and we finish the show. Stumbles.
And the last few minutes of the show is the crowd cheering Orange Cassidy. Because
even if he lost the belt, he is the one standing in the ring at the end of it all.
And he finally gets that vacation, and when he comes back, he's going to be up there in a top position.
Yeah.
But a match is great, and a character, and a wrestler's character is great. When I know all that in a meta sense, I understand it in a meta sense. I understand why what's happening is happening. When my brain goes, fuck all that. I want my boy to win. Fuck you, Jon Moxley. It's
just the moments where Cassidy is like fighting back to his feet, like barely able to stand, and just like getting. What I've loved so much about this reign is how desperate they've let him get. Like he does the thing, and you almost never see a face do this. But when Mox fights on the outside, Mox pulls up the padding outside the ring, looking to do I think a paradigm shift to Cassidy onto the exposed concrete. Cassidy counters into a beach break, so Mox hits that concrete. Cassidy rolls into the ring and immediately signals for Bryce to start counting.
It's like, start counting. Yeah, I saw that too. It's like, understandable.
It's like, a win is a win. I will take this. And it's not a cheap win. It's a fair win. You are
wrestling a small bear.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want this to be done with. I don't care how pretty it is.
Not waiting for him to get back up.
Right.
There's just so many great visuals, like the fact that at All In, Cassidy won his team's match by wrapping tape on his hand, smashing glass into it, and hitting Superman punches. So he's still got his hand taped up from that. And as he's bleeding so badly during the show, you see the padding on it, or the tape on his hands get redder and redder as he wipes away.
His pants splotched.
Oh, geez, all the blood stains on light denim. I never thought about how much that stands out.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It was just. I keep saying the word incredible. It was incredible.
It's also given Mox's history with a certain other person who's fond of a Superman punch and a spear.
Yeah.
Those orange punches and that spear from Cassidy looked like it should have been enough to take him. Like I thought the match was going to end right there.
I thought it was really cool the top rope spot where Moxley was going to do something to Cassidy. Cassidy, they noticed they say this in commentary. He slips out because he's so bloodied.
Yeah, he just can't get a grip on him.
Yeah.
Oh man,
so good.
And
it was so good. And you're right. That was one of the most important parts of the match. Is even when Cassidy was being silly, Mox was taking him seriously.
Yeah.
Like you contrast that with like say Pac, who I don't know if he didn't took him seriously. He just wanted to end him because he was like, you are just a thorn in my side. So it wasn't so much serious.
Pac was constantly annoyed that he had to fight Cassidy, that he even had to spend time on this guy, no matter how hard the match got.
Mox will spend the time.
Yeah. And so the go-home to this is just... oh, man, I get kind of emotional just thinking about it.
I do, too. Because like I said, it's like, I understand why this has to happen, but fuck you. I want Orange Cassidy to win.
So we get the spot where Mox is on his knees and Cassidy puts his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
And we're, like 17 minutes into the match, but he starts to do like the tap kicks.
Yeah.
And then they get harder and faster, and he's kicking with everything he's got because this is all he's got left.
Yep.
And Mox isn't even protecting himself at first, and by the time he realizes how hard this is coming, he can't get his hands up to defend him. Cassidy backs up for the last kick, and Mox finds it in himself to get up and just flip him over with a lariat.
Yep.
And so Cassidy somehow gets back to his feet. Mox hits him again, hits a Death Rider, pins him 1-2, and Cassidy gets the smallest, laziest shoulder up.
What's funny is he gets the lazy shoulder up, but Mox rears up like, I cannot believe he rolled out. That was so good.
And so Mox just goes to the corner for a second, and he looks down, and he actually looks like he's praying for a moment, and Cassidy just somehow
works his way up,
gets his feet under him. He can barely get his hands up.
Super shaky.
And he starts to put his hands up and just turns out 2 middle fingers to Mox, because at this point that's all he can do.
And then another. He hits him with another one.
Drops him straight down on the top of his head with a Death Rider and pins
3.
him.
Yeah.
And just Cassidy rolls over and does not move while, again, the Blackpool Combat Club comes out, and there's just an amazing shot that they get of Cassidy lying in the middle of the ring. The backpack that carried his title is in the foreground, and just in the back we see Mox and the others just move past and go up the ramp. But we keep the camera on Cassidy in that moment.
Congrats on your new title, Mox. Fuck you.
Yeah, but also the credibility that Cassidy has put on this title, that both Mox is credible enough to take it off of him without looking like he just got squashed by a quote-unquote real wrestler.
That's who it took to take it off him. That's how you have to phrase that. You look at Moxley, that's what had to happen to get that title off of Orange Cassidy.
And this wasn't like, every 3 months he's defending it. This is like, he's more weeks than not, I think, out of the last year he was on television defending this thing. Again, just to mention someone else, Roman Reigns, as of today, has held the Universal title in WWE for 1,100 days. He has defended it 28 times.
Neat. Who cares?
Yeah. So I'm just saying, a championship run does not just mean you win forever.
See, if they had figured that out for Roman, where it's like he's to prove him he's head of the table, he's been defending it so much that he's starting to wear down, and someone finally is able to take it off him. That's an interesting story I'd have been invested in.
Yeah, that would be. Or like the bloodline falls apart and he's got to stand on his own, and somehow he does it for like 6 or 8 months before somebody finally gets him down. But no, maybe it was just after the weekend of drama, after all of the craziness, seeing so many bad faith takes on Twitter from people who just seem to want something fundamentally different from professional wrestling than I do. This match was what I needed. It was just so open-hearted in its storytelling.
It was the capper to an excellent show.
It was. It really was.
It was the show they needed to give after everything that's happened. And it was the show they delivered.
Yeah, and apparently, while we don't see this, the last shot we get is Cassidy.
After
Cassidy,
the cameras.
He makes it back to his feet, and he gets freshly squeezed, and thank you, Orange, chants for a while. And
well, they do that before he gets to his feet. That's how a show closes.
That's right, because he does eventually get back up before the cameras go off. And apparently the best friends, and Chris Statlander is hanging out with them again, which is nice.
Yeah.
They did come down and give him a group hug in the middle of the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, this was another one where I was like, maybe I'm overvaluing this just because of where I was emotionally when I watched it. But I look at this and I just see everything I love about All Elite Wrestling and just what it has given this industry and the people and the talents that it has elevated.
You're not overvaluing it emotionally. No, the fact that you're feeling those kind of emotions means it's a good match.
Yeah. So just I look at this and I see just two guys who have made it clear that they will give their all for this company.
This is, in the best sense, what getting worked is.
Yeah.
A lot of people throw that out there as a pejorative when people are like, I don't like, they complain about something, and someone will go, you're getting worked. Of course you don't like it. It's like, no, getting worked ideally is you watching this match and going, holy fuck, I love this.
Yeah. Just seeing only the story and not thinking about the performers or the gimmicks or anything else. Just seeing the story that they're telling. And yeah, just for that reason and just for everything this match represents about AEW and what that company means to me, I'm going to give out the second 5 rating in my time hosting This Is a Work. That match was everything I want professional wrestling to be, and I can't think of a thing that I would change or want different about it.
I can only say in my clearly unbiased opinion that you're correct in every way.
All right, so yeah, that people complained about the build to this pay-per-view, and I kind of get that because they were sort of trying to do double duty between All In and All Out, and then after All In, they had about a week to sort of transition everything over, and that was before dramas, firings, and all that.
So yeah, I think the lesson is don't do these a week apart.
Yeah, I would give them a little more breathing space next
Do
year.
anything but that.
Yeah. Just 4 weeks. 4 weeks and you've got it. And
Yeah.
it seems like they're already working on shaking up their pay-per-view schedule because they've announced Wrestle Dream
Right.
coming in October, and I'm guessing that was originally going to be what Danielson came back for because it is going to be out of Seattle.
Right.
As a tribute show to Antonio Inoki, although it's not. I don't think it's officially a collaboration for New Japan.
It's
but
not. It's. I don't. I think they just got the rights to the name, or they have
Yeah.
the name. Yeah.
I think Tony's public statement has just been obviously he hopes talent will participate, but it's not an official
Right.
like cross promotional
Right.
thing. But I look forward to seeing that. And I'm just gonna again. There was a lot that was working against this pay-per-view, and I just for all that the talent came out, showed up, and just put their hearts on the line, I got to give this overall card 4.5 out of 5 meet forever chance. All right, well, Chris, this has been a fun one to talk about. I admit when I
Sure.
watched this show this weekend, I was just excited to get in here and break it down because, again, I feel like I went back and listened to the SummerSlam episode, and I was like, man, I was not in a happy place when I watched that, and that card did not make me happier. But All Out just got me to such an emotional high in that way that really good wrestling does. All right, do you have any other thoughts you wanted to give in before we
Not
wrap
really.
up?
No, I think it's all out there.
All that, indeed. Oh, we didn't even mention WWE Payback was also this weekend.
So I know.
I heard it was good. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, David, do you have anything you'd like to leave the nice listeners with?
Am I taking that to mean that we are not doing a payback episode?
Shelby and Gina might take that one. I actually never got a firm conclusion, but if not, the official take of This Is a Work is that the pay-per-view was probably fine.
That's you're watch at your own risk. That's you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't do one, I'm perfectly fine with it. If Shelby and Gina come to me and say, hey, we want to do it, I'll absolutely record it for them, or I might ask Kara to do it, either or.
This is the strongest amount of damning with faint praise I've ever heard.
I don't know what they could say that we haven't already said. I feel like we covered it pretty extensively.
At this point, going back and watching it, I feel I will be disappointed. But not even to say it's a bad pay-per-view, but we just spent about 2 hours praising this show up and down and basically giving it high marks. I don't think Payback is going to live up to that.
Almost certainly not. Robert, if people want to reach out to you online or follow you online, someplace that isn't Twitter/X, where can they do that at?
Every now and then, you'll look over your shoulder and you'll see a flicker of a shadow in the distance behind you.
It's Eddie Kingston run.
Yeah. I just wanted to warn people about that. Otherwise, I'm nowhere in particular.
Oh, okay. Chris, do you utilize any social media that isn't Twitter?
No, I keep forgetting about Instagram, even though I shouldn't, but...
Okay, well, I also don't use Twitter, but you can find me on Instagram at DBHensley. And you can follow us as the podcast on Instagram at Long Walk Podcast, which is singular, and at This Is a Takeover. If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us to see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming. You can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on the Long Walk Podcast Network, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you are listening on.
And ladies and gentlemen, from all of us here at This Is a Work, remember, sometimes the backpack's too heavy, sometimes your face gets bloody, sometimes the other guy just wins the match. But if you walk out of there with some best friends to support you and some fans cheering your name, well, I think you're still a champion. Rest up, Orange Cassidy, and we can't wait to see you again. I'm Redbeard Robert Brafford.
I'm sorry, what?
And Chris does not have a catchphrase.
But he will by next time. Guys, let's go slap some meats together.
Mm-mm.